sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spa!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est Canadiens qui vont faire le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked the young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6 beer. Intense by nature. And Laraque. If the last time you went to Laraque was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Laraque. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Thursday, January 19. The Montreal Canadiens lose by a score of 6-2. It is 1 minute past 10 o'clock Eastern. And what is going on? What is going on with the referees at tonight's hockey game? An absolute disaster. I'm not going to tell you that the Canadiens just lost because of the referees, because obviously the Canadiens didn't play their best game, but clearly the referees didn't give the Montreal Canadiens the benefit of the doubt. The Florida Panthers went on the power play 8 times in this hockey game, and they scored 4 goals on the power play. The Canadiens went on the power play 5 times in this hockey game, and they didn't score any, and clearly that was the difference in the game. But 13 penalties, a bunch of fights in this game, and it almost seemed like one of the turning points in the game is that there could have been a possible goaltender interference on goal number 1 of the game, but, the Montreal Canadiens challenged it, and the goal was allowed, and obviously the Canadiens lose the challenge, and the Florida Panthers go on the power play, and they end up making it 2-0 and scoring 2 goals in the power. As a matter of fact, their third goal to make it a 3-0 lead in period number 2 was on the power play as well. And then they make it 4-0, and their 5th goal of the second period was on the power play as well. So 4 power play goals out of 5 goals that were scored in period number 2 after a scoreless first period. I'm going to bring up the lineup in just a second. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you that the Sick Podcast is proudly brought to you by 8.6 beer. It looked like the referees may have had 1 or 2 of these tonight. Intense, like the guys who dropped the gloves tonight by nature. The beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. It's also brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, an asset-based 3PL provider offering outstanding service at incredible rates, serving all of North America. Energy Transportation Group offers full service logistics support, and also brought to you in part by Laraque. If the last time you went to Laraque was when the referees were better than this, it's time you go back to Laraque. Or if they were this bad, was the last time you went was when they were this bad. It's time you go back to Laraque. The menu will surprise you, and I'll be going there on Saturday night at Laraque at the Bell Center. But of course, there are many Laraque locations all over the place. As a matter of fact, one just a hop, skip, and a jump away from me right here in Villa Sal on Boulevard Newman, which I go to every now and then as well. I know you're going to have a lot of reaction tonight with this hockey game that was. And by the way, I'll give you the phone number right now already so that you can jump on a line and get to it. But I'm not getting to calls just yet. But jot down this number, 1-888-585-SICK. 1-888-585-7425. It is a toll-free number. I want to bring up the lineup for the game before we get to our regular contributor who joins us every Thursday night. Here you have it. Suzuki centered Caulfield and Ylonen. Doc with Anderson and Hoffman. Dvorak with Dadonov and Pezzetta. And of course, your extras were Pitlick and Harvey Pinard, but there was always somebody who was double shifting. On defense, 7 defensemen: Harris, Savard, Edmondson, Barron, Matheson, Kovacevic, and Arber Xhekaj. It was a difficult night for Samuel Montembeault. Was it his fault? No, it wasn't. But he gave up, once again, 5 goals in the second period. And the way the game was going, I, for one, called for Samuel Montembeault to be pulled after period number 2. I put that up on Twitter. I'm happy I did, and I'm happy that Marty St. Louis saw the same things, because if you keep Samuel Montembeault in there, he's been on such an amazing run in the last 5 games, especially the last 3 prior to tonight, where he had stopped 99 of 103 shots. If you keep him in and all of a sudden 5 goals becomes 8 goals or 9 goals, his confidence just takes a beating. The Canadiens clearly didn't have it tonight. The referees clearly didn't have it tonight. Maybe the Canadiens didn't have it because the referees didn't have it. Clearly, it started bad because of the refs. There could have been a goalie interference on goal number 1. It stands, so it's 1-0 Florida. The Canadiens challenge. Florida goes back on the power play. It's 2-0. So the referees put the Canadiens in a really, really bad spot tonight. Joining me from BPM Sport, former National Hockey League player and enforcer, who I'm sure is going to have an opinion or two on some of the fights that we saw in tonight's hockey game. Let's bring in George Laraque. George,
what? 1-888-585-SICK.
You like
I
that?
love how you give the phone number. Lots of energy. I love it, man.
All right. Speaking of energy, George, we saw it in the fights tonight, but we didn't quite see it in the game. This is a game, George, that was getting out of hand. And at one point, the players said, you know what? We have to have a little bit of dignity here, Montreal Canadiens players, and a little bit of grace and a little bit of face. I might surprise you with an opinion early on tonight, but I'm not afraid to say it, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
When a game gets out of hand and the gloves drop and it's fight after fight after fight, I think that takes away from the game of hockey. Knowing what we know now about punches to the head, look, I'm not crazy about that, but I understand that as long as it's semi-allowed, it's going to happen. Now, this may sound crazy because I'm trying to say that I'm not crazy about fighting, but on one particular shift, late in the third period, Radko Gudas labeled Kirby Dach, and on that same shift, he tried to take out Kirby Dach's knee. And Josh Anderson just skated around like I don't know, it was like the Disney on Ice or whatever it was. He wanted no part of Radko Gudas. I don't know if they exchanged words or not. Watching on TV, I mean, you cannot make Radko Gudas label Kirby Dach late in a period in a game that is already getting away from you and trying to take out his knee. Gudas was going after everyone today. By the way, he and Arber Xhekaj led the game in hits with 5 hits apiece. Your thoughts?
Okay, so you remember the couple games ago in the press conference, Josh Anderson, in an interview, he said that the league is becoming soft because he's kind of trying to justifying why he wasn't playing so well and how the game is soft now and it's not like it used to be tonight.
Can I just respectfully add something to what you just said? Josh Anderson said the league is becoming soft, and you said because he's trying to justify. Let me add something. Maybe he's trying to justify because he's become soft.
But that's exactly it. Because for a guy that when he talked to the media, it seemed that his game is harder now because the game is soft and he has to change the way that he plays. Tonight was a game that was geared up for him, where he had an opportunity that now to show his toughness because he doesn't hit anymore. He's no longer a menace. And then everybody saw what Gudas was doing. Xhekaj is fighting every game now. Yes, he brings a good dimension to the team, but Josh Anderson could do it too. He's on the ice. Xhekaj is a rookie. He can't do it all. You can't expect him to go fight every game. Josh Anderson is tough. But is the fact that Xhekaj is in there now, that now he's getting softer? He lets Xhekaj do the fights for him? Why he's not as physical as he used to be? He used to be a physical force. Is he hurt? Is he playing hurt? I don't know what that is. When I saw that, Tony, I thought it was weird.
George,
a game like this is geared up for guys like Josh Anderson.
George, this comment came probably give or take about a week ago. And it's funny. Now you're going to laugh, right? Because I was driving around and I heard you and your colleague Max Truman on BPM Sport weekdays between 11 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. You had this discussion about what Josh Anderson said. I had arrived at destination. I was parked in my truck, And I sent both you guys a text message, and I'm not shy to say it. And what I said to you is 5 years left on his contract or whatever it is. The guy's taking it easy. He's packed it in. And I'm sorry, I feel that way. And if there's something the National Football League has right, and I know that hockey players would never go for it in the National Hockey League, and hockey agents wouldn't want it either. But the National Football League, there's no guaranteed contracts. Guys don't sit on their contracts. And I really believe, and not everyone, okay, because the ones who don't, those are what we call the real ones. Ça, c'est des vrais. But guys that sit on their contracts, those, unfortunately, are not the real ones. And until Josh Anderson proves me wrong, I'm going to say that he's sitting on his contract. He's not going 100%. And when there's 2 years left on his contract or a year and a half, he's going to put it from second gear to fourth. And in the final year, he's going to put it to fifth. You just got a contract of 7 years, $5.5 million a couple of years ago for Marc Bergevin. Put it in fifth and keep it in fifth.
You know, when he got in with Montreal and he started playing, he was my favorite player by far. He was my favorite player because, not just because of his speed, he'd go to the net all the time. He was very physical. He was an intimidating factor. This year, I don't recognize him anymore. The speed, he always has it. But you know what? You cannot change the type of player that you are. You're a guy that's supposed to go to the net, crash, and bang. You said the league is soft, take advantage of it. Be physical. You get even more room because people are not going to want to face you physically. And that's why, like, I'm wondering if he's playing hurt because he's not hitting anymore. It doesn't make sense. Because Montreal needs him because there's no power forward on that team. He's the only one that has that potential. He's the only wingers that could be physical. And that's why when I look at him like a game like tonight, why no media brought up the conversation that he had a couple of weeks ago when he said the league was getting soft? Because that was a game for him and he wasn't there. He's a veteran. He should lead by example. And I don't understand it tonight. What just happened.
Maybe our media is getting soft.
Well, you know that
I don't want to paint them all with the same brush, but they're
no, I know.
Let's put the cards on the table, okay?
We go
back 10 years. There used to be a tougher media. Yes or no?
Actually, let's be honest. Media that are covering the team are very careful what they're asking. Back then, it didn't matter. You're right that people, the real question was there. Now, we have to be careful. We don't want to lose privilege. We don't lose privilege of being the next one asking a question. We don't want to make anyone mad. That's why the best media, Tony, are the ones that are neutral, the ones that are not covering the team, so they don't have to be careful. They could be neutral, not one way or another. They're fair. And today, if I would have been in the room, I wanted to talk to Josh Anderson, and I bring back that comment that he said and ask him about tonight's game.
1,000%.
Josh, do you think that tonight's game was soft, since you're saying the league was soft? And was this game geared for you? When Rako Gudas went after Dak, that is one of your top players, did you see it? What did you do about it? How come you didn't do anything about it? We all jumped on Petrie because he didn't do anything when Montalvo got run. Josh Anderson's tough.
You know, George, I think we have to take this title of power forward away from Josh Anderson once and for all. I'm going to bring up a couple of names. You ready? Cam Neely, Keith Tkachuk, Eric Lindros,
Keith Primo,
Todd Bertuzzi. Like, we're talking power forward.
Jeremy Roenick.
Okay? They would bring it all the time. Do you think Cam Neely took nights off? And yes, I get it. Cam Neely was a 40-goal scorer and even 50 at one point, and he's another. But, you know, we're giving this title of power forwards. Like, somebody once, like a couple of weeks ago, stopped me in the street and said, you know, Armia he needs a little bit more heart, a little bit more consistency because he's a power forward. Armia power forward.
My God. God.
Like if Armia is a power forward, then the role of power forward, it doesn't exist anymore in the National Hockey League.
I agree. Armia,
there's no more power forwards even in the media, right? You were talking about them. Everyone wants to be chummy with everybody. You know, hey, I want them to be our friend. You know, come on. You know what? I've always
Armia. Just a little thing about Armia. I look at this guy this big that could skate. He's afraid of hitting people. I don't understand why he's not using his body. He's strong. He's fast. I was wondering why the Jets let him go. Now I understand. Because at least Anderson, as disappointing as he is sometimes, he hits sometimes. Armia, with the skill that he has, man, if he figured it out, because he does have the talent, he does have the hands, he would be sick, just like the Sick podcast.
Okay. Hey, I'm gonna.
He plays too soft, man.
I'm going to take it a step further. What you just said, we were talking about Josh Anderson, the whole power forward, and you said, well, nowadays it's different than 10 years ago because media, they don't want to have any privileges revoked, or they want to be, they want to be in the good books with the team and all that stuff. I'd be willing to bet. I'm going to tell you something, okay? And I'm not perfect by any means, but this is the way, I've been throughout my career.
Okay.
I say what I think what I say, and that's it. I think I'm fair. Some can think I'm tough, but I think I'm fair. I don't say things that are wrong. I think I say the real things. I'd be willing to bet, George, that even though some members of the media probably think the way you think or are acting the way you're saying they're acting, I would be willing to bet that maybe the likes of the Jeff Gordons of this world and Kent Hughes of this world, and especially the Marty St. Louis of this world, if Josh Anderson would be called out, they know it's fair. I bet you they would appreciate it. I bet you they would almost like it to say, you know what? Someone's saying the real things here, trying to light a fire under this guy, and let's see what kind of reaction he's going to give, whether he gives one or not. But those, George, those are fair guys. Gordon, Hughes, and St. Louis are fair. If you would come out on the air tonight and said what you just said, I bet you that if they wouldn't have a problem with it.
Tony, I have a question for you, and I can't wait to hear you answer on that one, and even your listeners. Everybody loves Martin St. Louis as a coach, right? Everybody does, right?
But hold on.
You love Martin St. Louis?
But hold on. If you're going to ask the question and I'm going to have to answer it, that means I'm going to end up being the collaborator right now. So I'm just wondering, how much are you going to pay me?
Okay. So listen to this, okay? A lot of people are bragging about St. Louis, how good of a coach is and everything. Tell me this, okay? How come he never calls out any of the veteran guys that are sleeping? How come he never calls them out? How come he talks about passengers, but he's never called out anyone? How come he never backskated the team once to punish them when he said there's too many passengers? How come the same veterans that are sleeping every game, they're back in the lineup in the top six, playing a power play again?
Because the veterans,
how come he never calls them out?
Veterans have to be showcased for a trade, George.
They're dead. You can't showcase anything when it's dead. If they're not playing, show the team, have the respect of your team, play the players that are playing.
Okay.
Because right now, it's 15 games that you've been trying doing the showcase. It's not working. They're dead. There's absolutely no team in the NHL that are looking at a veteran, Tony, and they're going to say, I need this guy to win the cup. Okay. The only guy is Monahan when he comes back from his injury that we hope that we can get someone in return. Other than that, everybody else's stock is going down.
Okay. Hold on a second here. Hold the fort, okay? I don't disagree with what you said, but the players that you said all their stock was going down, and you said he didn't call them out, there's a lot of truth in what you said. There's a lot. I will counter by saying that he made Mike Hoffman a healthy scratch on several occasions. I will counter by saying that he made Evgeny Dadonov a healthy scratch on several occasions. I will counter by saying that he had Jonathan Drouin on the fourth line. Now, did he backskate them? No. Should he have? Maybe yes. Did he call out his veterans? No. Should he have? Maybe yes. I'm going to give you all of that. But to say that all these guys, their value is low, before Jonathan Drouin got hurt, his last 6 or 7 games were his best games of the season, and his 3-point night His 3-point night that he had about a week and a half ago is probably the best.
3-second assist, by the way.
I understand that. It was still one of his better games in a while. Dadonov's 2 goals the other night, Hoffman's goal the other night. You know, some of the guys, you can make a case they don't have big value. I still think, and I could be wrong, that they will get picked up before the deadline because there's no roster freeze on the amount of players. Every team needs depth. They're only going to be on the hook for salary for a month and a half, but the Canadiens might have to take a contract back.
Tony, just so you know, it doesn't matter if the guys that the contract is up this year, like Drouin, Dadonov, if the contract is up this year, whether somebody pick him up or not, it doesn't matter. They're gone next year. I'm talking about guys that you're on the hook with a couple more for another year after this year that you have to get rid of. There's no, if Drouin stays all year and Dadonov, you can get rid of him. It doesn't matter. The team's not going anywhere. And actually, if they stay, they might help them win the lottery for Bedard because they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's the contracts, as you know, that are loaded that you have to get rid of. Like Gallagher, it's impossible. His body, he can't do it anymore. And some other contract like this that are too heavy.
So some coaches are hesitant in calling out veteran players because they think that if they do, they'll lose their room, for example. This wouldn't be hold on a second. I'm gonna defend you on this, so I'm gonna agree with you. This wouldn't be the case because the veteran players here, they're not big voices in that locker room.
Exactly.
Yes.
They would have to lead the team.
Yeah.
If they're not leading the team, okay, they're veteran, but they're dead. They're dead meat. You think dead meat is gonna stand up in front of all the rookies and everything?
No.
Hey guys, I got bench. I'm not playing. I don't like St. Louis. Let's cast him out. My God, they can't talk. They can't say anything.
I'm going to agree with you,
right
George,
now,
on this one.
When the veteran are supposed to be there to mentor the rookies are mentoring the veteran.
George, I'm going to agree with you on this one, and I'm going to take it a step further. Marty St. Louis signed a 3-year deal. He has all the power right now. The Montreal Canadiens are not going to get rid of Marty St. Louis. When Marty St. Louis came in last year in February, they're going to get rid of him this year in January. He's not even going to do 1 full year. Marty St. Louis has the power. He's got more power than the players. It doesn't matter what the Canadiens do between now and the end of the year. It doesn't matter how many games in a row they lose. It wouldn't matter how many goals they give up. Marty St. Louis is not getting fired. He has the power. He probably should have called out some players. I'm going to agree with you. The only reason why I'm thinking maybe he didn't is I don't think winning the games this year is all that important. However, they told us that a culture of working was. So if the guys aren't working, maybe he should have called them out. George, every now and then, I'm going to agree with you. Tonight's one of those nights.
Awesome.
Hey.
Okay. Awesome. Always a pleasure to be in a sick podcast.
Before I let you go, because I know you've been putting in a lot of hours lately, so I want to make you get some of your beauty sleep, okay? I want to have your thoughts on Arber Xhekaj fighting, on Pezzetta fighting, on Matheson. I think a lot of people were surprised to see Michael Matheson drop the gloves versus Matthew Tkachuk. And then I'll let you go.
Madison should never drop the gloves. Madison has been hurt all year. Showed a lot of guts against Tkachuk. Tkachuk is tough. He wants to show how he's a true leader. Madison, he hasn't been there much. He's been hurt a lot. Don't fight Madison because the Canadian needs you. Since Edmondson is going like this, Madison is the only hope of a mentor the young guys could have. Don't get hurt in a fight. In a game that is done out of hand.
Even more reason for Josh Anderson to be embarrassed.
You're 100%
you're on the bench and you're watching Michael Matheson fight Matthew Tkachuk. Don't you think it should be you?
Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense. As a vet, like I could guarantee you, Tony, that guys on the team are not happy. They're not happy what just happened.
Oh, really?
Xhekaj is like, what more can I say about this guy? Remarkable, he's fighting every game. Like every game, he's there for his teammate. The thing with the logo that he did, I love the guy. He's amazing. Team first. You'll defend anyone. He's playing like a veteran and he's a rookie. He has a mentality of a veteran and he's learning the toughest part of the NHL job is fighting and he's doing awesome. And Pezzetta wants to show that, he could contribute to and bring it up. I love the energy that Pezzetta bring and Xhekaj. And Anderson tonight could learn a thing or two from these guys because he's the veteran. He should be the one leading the way in a game like this.
George, special thanks. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Great job on BPS Sports all week long. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
Thanks, brother.
All right, there you have it. Former NHLer, former Montreal Canadien. He was an enforcer. Not too many better than him, my friend. He is George Laraque, and he's a regular contributor right here on the Sick Podcast. Marinaro, shout out the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The Tascam equipment is supplied by Ericsson Audio, the choice of musicians, engineers, and broadcast professionals. Thank you very much, Ericsson, for providing me with the tools that I need to do my job. All right, I'm going to get to some of your comments. I'm going to give you the phone number at 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7425. The referees in tonight's game, Ghislain Hébert and Jake Brink. Ghislain Hébert and Jake Brink. At the office, in life, at work, whatever work you do, we all have our good days and we all have our bad days. And a lot of players in sports, they're given, grades on a report card from fans, from members of the media, from journalists. They have that. It's very prevalent in Europe, by the way. You got a report card. It's on 10. The higher the score you get, the better the game they believe that you played. All right. If we had to grade the referees on 10 tonight, it's probably a 2 on 10. They were not consistent with their calls. The only consistency that they had was that they made bad calls all night long. They let the game get away from them. And when you let the game get away from you, players take the game into their own hands. I hated the fact that it was fight after fight after fight after fight, and I'm probably in the minority because I know that everyone likes a good fight every now and then. The second Xhekaj dropped the gloves or any of the fights, everyone was standing up and everyone was going crazy. Considering the dangers of fighting, and we know the damage that a punch to the head can do, I mean, I'm not crazy about fighting the way I used to be crazy at fighting. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty scared when I see any shot to the head. Speaking of which, this whole slap fighting sport, it's not a sport. I don't know if it's sanctioned or whatever it is. It must be because it's on TV. They have competitions. Have you seen this thing? Like two people stand like directly in front of each other, probably like 2 feet from each other. And they just line up and they line up and they line up. And then all of a sudden they swing. Bah! And they slap each other in the face. I saw something on Twitter a couple of days ago. I think I saw some blood coming out of someone's ear. We're in 2023. What are we here? Are we in 1923? Are we in 2023? What in the world is going on with this sport? That people actually, and they thrive on this stuff. Like they go crazy. They actually put down $1 or $2. They bet on it, right? Who's going to win? Who's going to fall down? Who's going to tap out? The other day actually was funny because it wasn't funny, but the person who had like blood coming out of their ear, their face was swollen. And as a matter of fact, their face was going in like different directions. Like part of it was going here and the other part was going there. And that person ended up winning this whole slap fighting competition or whatever. It's crazy. But anyway, I didn't like the 3 fights one after another tonight. I didn't. As a matter of fact, I tweeted something to the effect of, at what point are the Florida Panthers and the Montreal Canadiens going to start playing hockey again? But at the same time, all this stuff happened because the referees made the game get away from them. And guys were trying to deliver dirty hits, and it wasn't getting called. And then when things shouldn't have been getting called, they were getting called. It's just an entire game that didn't make sense. An entire game that didn't make sense. And no, Corey, who on chat says you're comparing slap fighting to hockey fights. Wow. No, I'm not doing that. But somebody said to me tonight on Twitter, when are the Panthers and the Canadiens going to start playing hockey again? And somebody said to me, hey, we need entertainment. Well, I'm going to tell you something. If you need fighting in hockey for your entertainment, well, then there's a problem with hockey and hockey needs to get fixed. Okay? I mean, do you need fighting in soccer? No. Do you need fighting in basketball? No. Do you need fighting in football? No. Do you need fighting in, another sport other than actually boxing or MMA? Like, no. Folks, no. And now I'm getting, of course, the whole soccer is boring and soccer, it's a joke sport and all that stuff. Yeah. Okay, whatever. Yeah. And it's you play it. You play it. If you think it's a joke sport, you play it. You run in the midfield 11, 12, 13 kilometers a game. You take kicks in the back of the legs when you have no protection. You do it. You take elbows to the head off corner kicks when you're not wearing any headgear and you're not wearing any helmet. You take it. You go up for a header when someone else goes up for a header and you get headed in the back of your head, or you actually get headed in the face. No helmet, no headgear. You do it. Play the sport. Tell me how easy you think it is. All right? Okay. Now, I don't know why every time we talk about soccer, we bring it up. Everyone wants to choose to do whatever they want. Listen, it's the biggest sport in the world. The numbers for the Super Bowl don't even come close to the numbers that you see in World Cup soccer. Dave Peak, enough, Tony. Soccer's pathetic. 1-0 and fall down. Yeah, Dave, you're very educated. There was a game today. There were 7 goals that were scored, Dave. 7. There was only one more goal that was scored in the hockey game tonight between the Canadiens and the Panthers. But I could tell you that game today that was played that had 7 goals that were scored. Well, I can tell you that Buffalo played the Islanders tonight and 5 goals were scored. I can tell you that there's 4 minutes left in the game between Washington and Arizona and 1 goal was scored. And so, anyone who says soccer games finished by a score of 1-0 hasn't watched a soccer game in a very, very, very long time. Hey, by the way, a couple of years ago, the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup, and in the semifinals, they beat the New York Islanders in Game 7. You want to know what the score was? Yeah, it was 1-0, by the way. All right, okay. Let's get to more of your comments, and you can send them in. And a shout out, of course. We can even get to some of your calls. And why don't we actually do that? 1-888-585-7425. It's you called?
You called. Presented by Playground.
Playground, your premier gaming destination located just over the Mercier Bridge. Only minutes from downtown Montreal. And the way this segment works is that we take calls. Yes, of course, if you're going to jump on a line. And some people are on their smartphone and they're watching on YouTube Live, or they're watching on Facebook Live, or they're watching on Twitter Live. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. It's a great community. And if you're on YouTube Live right now, you're going to see the chat that's going on. But if you haven't, subscribe to it. Tell your friends about it if you have, by the way, and hit the like button if you like what you're hearing and you like what you're watching, you like participating, hit the like button. If you want to send a message SICK, SICK. Sick. So anyway, you called. You can jump on the way you jump on a line. If you still want to watch off your smartphone, off YouTube, is you grab your phone at home, you grab your landline, maybe you have a cordless phone, and you call toll free 1-888-585-7425. And probably Agnello is going to pick up the phone. If not, his daughter Juliana is going to pick up the phone because the Cavallaro is here. This is a family-run business, the Sick Podcast. They have everyone working on it, right? Sammy's the genius, right? Then you got Agnello, you got Rosa, you got Juliana. They're all working on it. So we'll either take calls or we'll take comments. And Sammy and Agnello just bring them up, and then I know exactly what I'm doing, whether I'm taking calls or taking comments. I know where to go. So bring up a couple of comments, guys. Bring up a couple of questions. Did Gudas intentionally shoot the puck at Dak in the third? I'm not so sure he did. I'm not so sure that he did. At the end of the day, only he knows if he intentionally shot the puck at him. I remember the great Guy Lafleur. I think it was Mike Milbury that said, Guy Lafleur shot the puck at my head and he tried to take my head off. And Guy Lafleur was asked about it years later, and they said, did you intentionally try and take Mike Milbury's head off? And he said, intentionally try and take his head off? No. I just wanted to scare him. So, I mean, if Lafleur didn't answer whether or not he wanted to do it on purpose, we wouldn't know. But he told us. So, you know, the only guy who knows is actually Radko Gudas. Radko Gudas knows if he tried to shoot the puck at Kirby Dach. Tony says, Sonny Hendricks, what did you think of the small sample size of Caden Primo? I thought it was good. You know, Caden Primo's coming off a concussion. He hasn't gotten a lot of practice time. Kent Hughes talked about that yesterday at the presser. He said, I think you'll see Caden Primo pretty soon. But he comes in, and he comes in period number 3, and it's a good thing because Montembeault doesn't get shelled by not playing the third, and Caden Primo doesn't get shelled in the third either because he only gives up a goal. So you know what? I think it's all good. I think it was a good night for Caden Primo that he came in and he only gave up a goal. All right, 66 spinning on YouTube. When will Sandro Grande be on the Sick podcast? All right. So Sandro Grande is a former professional soccer player. For those who don't know him, but I think everyone would know him by now because obviously he was in the news for the wrong reasons a couple of weeks ago. And Sandro Grande, back in 2012, made some terrible, terrible remarks about then Prime Minister of Quebec, Madame Pauline Marois. And also made some comments about Quebec sovereignists. And he had issued an apology back then and then started working for different organizations. He had issued an apology to the Laval representative of Le Parti Québécois. And he went on to work for different organizations. He went on to work for the Quebec Soccer Federation. He went on to train boys and girls at the National Training Center in Laval. He went on to train boys and girls at Cégep Montmorency in Laval. He went on to be the technical director of Les Étoiles de l'Est soccer team, went on to be the technical director of the Montreal Manic Academy, and most recently was the technical director of FC Laval. It appears CF Montreal approached him a couple of weeks ago and asked him to apply for the position that was vacant as head coach of CF Montreal's reserve team, which he did. And after a couple of interviews, and they brought up his past, they deemed that he was the coach to lead them in the right direction and help develop the players. So on Monday of about, 10 days ago or so, on the Monday, Sandro Grande was on the field at around 3 p.m. when he was training CF Montreal's reserve team. Later on that night, at around just over 6 p.m. or so, there's a press release that went out from CF Montreal announcing that Sandro Grande was the new head coach of CF Montreal's reserve team. And, he issued an apology, and the press release said that he made some big mistakes in the past, and he regretted it. Well, a couple of hours later, a tweet went out from the head of the Parti Québécois, Monsieur Plamondon, who basically said there's no way that CF Montreal can hire Sandro Grande, and we are totally against it. Anyone who wishes violence on someone else, and it can't be, and all that stuff. So next morning before 9 a.m., CF Montreal comes back on their decision, and they relieve Sandro Grande of his duties. A lot of people were waiting for Sandro Grande to speak following his hiring and firing, which was a hiring and firing probably 15 or 16, 17 hours interval. The news made its way all around the world. It made, L'Equipe newspaper in France. It made The Guardian in London, England. It made it to Italy. It made it everywhere. Everyone was talking about, especially nowhere more so than here in the province of Quebec. Well, 9 days after being relieved of his duties, Sandro Grande had a press conference earlier today at around 12:30 at a hotel in Laval. And he issued a sincere, heartfelt apology. And you can see his pain, and you can feel his pain. You can tell that it has not been an easy time for his family. And I know that some aren't going to want to forgive. I believe in second chances. And I don't think you have to forget. But I think in a case like this where Madame Marois accepted Sandro Grande's apology as they exchanged letters, it appears Monsieur Plamondon is going to meet Sandro Grande on Sunday, and there's an openness. And based on his tweets, Monsieur Plamondon's tweets from earlier today, it looks like it's headed in direction where he's going to accept Sandro Grande's apology as well. Well, at that point, if Madame Marois accepts Sandro Grande's apology and the head of the PQ party, Monsieur Plamondon, accepts Sandro Grande's apology, well, then I think we should accept Sandro Grande's apology. Some of you won't want to forget. You won't forget, and that's okay, but I think you can forgive. It's not to take away from the gravity of the tweets and what was said, which were unacceptable. But I think we can all say that we've all made mistakes in our lives, some bigger than others. And there are some that made huge mistakes, and they were able to reintegrate society, and they were able to go on to have jobs and prove themselves to society that they were able to rehabilitate themselves. And I think, once again, I think Sandro deserves that, especially based on the fact that, you know, the person that that forgave him was Madame Marois. And once again, she was the one that was on the opposite end of the tweets and the hate and the violence. So there's my take on that. But to answer your question, when will Sandro Grande be on the Sick podcast? He might be one day to talk soccer, but he's not going to be doing. I spoke with his member of media relations today. It's someone in charge of his presser. He's not doing any interviews on this matter, is what I was told. So you're not going to see him here, and you're not going to see him anywhere, because he said what he had to say today. And, you know, he wants to bring some closure to it, and he wants to move on. Thanks for the question. More questions. We have a caller, it appears. Okay, we have a caller. Luigi in a Huntsick. Luigi,
Tony?
how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Tony. First of all, I want to congratulate you on the show, and also had the opportunity to say to the Cavallero family, thank you for having you on the Sick podcast. Number one, Tony.
Thank you, Luigi. Thank you very much.
There's one reason why I listen to you, Tony, because I love that you're a straightforward guy. You say it the way it is about Sandro Grande's story. And I respect you a lot as a broadcaster, as a person, a sports mentor in the city. I've listened to you over 20 years, Tony, and I respect you a lot. And
look, Luigi, if I can, and I really appreciate that, I wanna always be transparent with the listeners and the viewers. Okay, I don't condone what Sandro said, and I realize what Sandro said was a huge mistake, and he made some huge mistakes. I was privy to seeing Sandro work for about 5 years. He was the technical director of the club that my eldest played at. My son went there, a good player. He taught him to be a better player. Sandro Grande is, if there's a harder working technical director in the city and in the province, you're gonna have to look very long and hard. He is always the first one on the field. He's the last one off the field. He works with all the different age groups. He works with the boys. He works with the girls. He works with the kids. He works with the teenagers. He works with the adults. He works with the seniors. And he knows pretty much every player in his club by their first name. And he has thousands of players. People talk about acts of violence, this, that, whatever. I personally, there 3 times a week, always driving my son, up to 5 years. That's a lot of times. I never saw any act of violence, and I never saw any words that were violent towards a kid, a child, a player, an opponent, a coach, a referee, or anything like that. I never saw it. And so that's all I said. And so, I'm biased in that regard. Having said that, because I got to know him, once again, I'm going to make no excuse for what he said. Anyone who does and anyone who tries to defend what he said, obviously, is not being reasonable. What he said was terribly, terribly wrong. But I'm going to come back to what I said before. And what I said before, I mean it. I believe in second chances, whether I know the person or I don't know the person. And there are people that have done a lot worse. And they were able to rehabilitate themselves, get back in society, get back in the workplace. I would not want to see Sandro canceled because of this. I would not want to see Sandro not be able to work in this city or in this province, not be able to put food on the table for his family. And obviously, if you watch the presser today, when he talked about his family, his kids in particular, he got very, very emotional because the last couple of weeks was tough on him and his family, but obviously very, very tough on the kids who had to go to school and heard some really, really bad stuff from other kids because their father was on the front page of the newspaper and was trending on social media. So, Luigi, thank you very, very much for that. I just wanted to put things in context and to explain, and that's that. What do you tell me, Luigi?
I watched the game tonight, Tony.
Yeah.
And that's why I called you. I watched the fights, and I was flipping back and forth from the Boston Rangers game. The Bruins are unstoppable, a well-organized team. But then I flipped to the Canadiens, and I was seeing all the fighting. And I have to agree with George Laraque and yourself as well, Tony. When I saw the hit there by Gudas and to Doc, and Josh Anderson was just close to him, and he did nothing, it got me sick to the stomach. And it reminded me a bit of last year when Massambo got hit behind the net. And I said, well, what's this guy doing? He's one of the leaders on the team. Why doesn't he go protect his player, his young teammate? And I found it a bit embarrassing. Me as a fan, I'm a big fan of the Canadiens, Tony. You know that very well. And the game was out of hand. And, I agree with you. Fighting it's not needed today. It's all about the game. But what he did, I think a lot of these young players will remember that on the ice, and they were looking at him. I think a lot of the young players would have appreciated had Anderson took things in his own hand. And if you looked at Doc when he got hit, he was looking towards his right side, looking if somebody was going to come and help him, and nobody did. And he got away with it. Gadas got away with a freebie there. And I find that Arber, and I will tell you something, Tony, Arber reminds me a lot of Chris Nyland when he came into the NHL with the Canadiens in the late 80s, late 70s, I think. And Chris was always there representing his players, ready to drop the gloves and protect his players. He was a good hockey player as well, Tony. This I will tell you. And Arber, for me, is one of those players that stands out, protects his teammates, and comes to play. And you have to give him credit because the young players on that team are going to look up to him going forward. And he's a leader. He's a leader on this team. And I respect that kid a lot because
he's a big time leader. Louis, how many it's funny, right? Because if you would go with a popularity contest, all right, I'd be willing to bet the Montreal Canadiens fans love, Nick Suzuki as much or more so than anybody else. Cole Caulfield as much or more so than anybody else. And after that, after Suzuki and Caulfield, and there's a lot of other guys, I wouldn't be surprised if Xhekaj was the third biggest fan favorite after Suzuki and Caulfield. And maybe it would be Doc at number 3, but if it would be Xhekaj at number 4, right?
Believe it or not, Tony, when I watch the games, I'm looking at Xhekaj. What's he doing on the ice? It's not the fact that he's fighting. He's always hitting players. He's in the game. He's in the zone. He's doing the right thing. And he defends his players, his young players. And he's out there. For me, that's a team leader. That's a great attribute towards a young player that you can have on your team. And I respect that a lot because it's hard to have players like that on the team that's going to defend your young players and it's going to take the hit for you. And going forward, I think this guy is going to be a big team player on the Canadiens. And I really like him. And I'm telling you, Tony, I remember when Chris Laraque came up in the late 70s with the Canadiens, he was that type of a player. He wasn't as much, because we had Larry Robinson, we had big players on that club that were well insulated. But this guy, Arber, makes everybody grow 6 inches taller when he's on the ice. And he defends his players. He takes the hit, and he gives up the hits. Some games this guy's all over the ice, and he penalty killing. He's got a great shot from the point. We're lucky to have a young player like this, and I'm so happy. And again, Tony, like you said, Suzuki and Caulfield, those are given. But young players like this, they're hard to find, Tony. Really hard to find. And I respect this guy. I really do. For what
Luigi, well said. I'm looking at YouTube Live right now. There's a lot of people that really like this call and agree with what you have to say, Luigi. Thanks so much for you as well, always calling and saying the real things. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tony.
All right, there you have it. Luigi from Ahuntsic. More of your comments and more of your calls. You can call me at 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7425. We're going to Regina, Saskatchewan. Jean-Philippe, comment ça va?
Hi, Tony. Ça va bien? How are
Ça
you?
va très bien, merci. Et toi, comment ça va?
Great. Podcast is amazing every night, or watching it every other day there.
Thank you. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Thank you. People like you make it all worth it, right? Because we've gathered a real nice community that's expanding and getting bigger and bigger with each and every day. And we're really having a lot of fun looking at the numbers, and we're having a lot of fun doing this. It's become a community. Everyone's on the chat, interacting. It's almost become an appointment, right? 10 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. And I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you very much. What's on your mind, my man?
Yeah, I am a Habs fan. Watch it often, and getting just interested in the next couple of years for what kind of players we'll get. And I was just curious, what would you think if Jonathan Toews would become, or would be interested to play in Montreal the next couple of years? Is that something that you think would be good for the team if they were to sign a guy like this a couple of years?
Jonathan Toews?
Yes, Jonathan Toews. Yes, from the Blackhawks.
No, I really don't think Jonathan Toews is a fit. And I'm going to tell you why, Jean-Philippe, for many, many reasons, all right? Jonathan Toews has had a very, very, very good, very, very long NHL career. He's been in the league since 2007. He's played about 1,200 games, including the playoffs. That's a lot of games. That's a lot of seasons. He's had injuries. He's still a good player. Like, there's no doubt about it. Probably picks up like a 0.75 points per game on average. He's still a good player, right? But obviously, a guy like Jonathan Toews, if he would get moved from Chicago, a team where they won 3 Stanley Cups, okay? If he would get moved from them, why would he want to move? He'd want to move to a team. Obviously, Chicago, we know that they might want to move him. They want to move Kane after moving several players, because Chicago is tanking. I mean, if that's not like a tank that's going on in Chicago, I don't know what is. But you're Jonathan Toews. You're 34. You've tasted the Stanley Cup several times. You've been with one team for over 15 years, and now they're tanking, so they're going to move you. Where are you going to go? To a rebuilding team that's going to lose more games than anything else, to a losing environment, No, you're going to go to a team,
right? Yeah.
That if you go to them, you can be the complementary piece to help get them to the final or win another Stanley Cup. So he's not a fit in Montreal. Like, no chance. None. Zero. No chance.
Yeah. Okay.
No chance.
I just saw or thought that Monahan can add an indirect impact on the team, and being a vet like that, I just thought, well, the kids could learn the next couple of years. And
look at now you brought up Sean Monahan, right? You brought up Sean Monahan. Listen, did you hear what Kent Hughes had to say at his presser yesterday? He said that 5 games into the season, right, he was hearing Monahan's name everywhere as a player that the Canadiens should trade. So he called Monahan into into his office and he said, listen, Sean, he said, this is Montreal. 5 games in already, everyone's talking about trading you. There's 3 ways it's going to go here. Either A, I'll trade you. B, I won't trade you. Or C, I will trade you. And we'll see what can happen in the summer when he goes unrestricted free agent with the possibility of bringing him back. So he said, right now, I don't know if it's going to go the way of A, B, or C. I do know that I'm not going to trade you anytime at the beginning of the season. I do know I'm not going to trade you anytime soon. So you know what? Go out and play the very best you can, and let's just go from there. And so, you know, you talked about Jonathan Toews, and then you talked about Sean Monahan, and you said that the impact that Sean Monahan's had on the Canadiens. So I know that Sean Monahan is not Jonathan Toews. I know that. But he is 6 years younger. So
Yes, for sure.
if you have a chance, maybe in the offseason, to bring back Monahan, if you're looking for a veteran player, I think it would make more sense to bring back Monahan than to go out and acquire a Jonathan Toews. That's what I think.
Okay.
Especially with the context being that is. I mean, Jonathan Toews would not want to come to a team that's rebuilding, you know?
Yeah, he certainly wants to win a cup again, probably. So
why not? The more you win, the more you want to win. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Merci, Jean-Philippe.
Thanks, Tony.
All right.
Take
Sounds like you too. Sounds like a good guy. Jean-Philippe. I could see Toews coming to Montreal in 2 or 3 years when the team will try to push for a playoff run, similar to Eric Stahl and Corey Perry coming in. Really great veteran to have in the playoffs. Thunder Gods says he won't go to the Leafs. They can't afford him. Kev says, hope we rebound on Saturday when the Montreal Canadiens host the Toronto Maple Leafs. And on Tuesday, they host the Boston Bruins, a couple of original 6 teams coming to Montreal over the next couple of days. Does Patrick Kane get moved? Yes, I believe he will. I believe Kane will get moved, and I believe Toews will be moved. Chicago is tanking. They want Connor Bedard. Vancouver wants Connor Bedard. Everyone wants Connor Bedard. And if the Canadiens can play the way they played tonight, between now and the end of the season, they might put themselves in a good position to have a pretty good chance at Connor Bedard. Kelly says, Tony, are you sitting in a loge when you go on Saturday night? Hi, Kelly. Thanks for watching. I will not be in a loge on Saturday night. I will be in the Reds. I believe I will be low in the Reds, and I believe I will be behind one of the nets. That's where I usually sit when I go with my buddy. So, no, I will not be in a loge. The Thurston says, I'd love to see Chicago not get a lottery pick. All right. Others coming in, and we'll get to some of your questions. And by the way, if you want to jump on a line, a couple of minutes left in the show, I might be able to just squeeze in one more call at 1-888-585-7425. 1-888-585-7425. I might be able to squeeze in one more call, or maybe 1 or 2 questions. Let's bring up a couple here. What if Caulfield wants $10 million? So let's just say this. Can we all agree that the way the market is now, that the Montreal Canadiens would have no other choice but to give Cole Caulfield a long-term deal at around $7.5 to $8 million? If we can all agree on that, then if they would give him $10 million, it would just be a couple of million more. It's not the end of the world. Cole Caulfield is young. If you give him an 8-year deal or a 7-year deal, it'll take him to age 30 or 31. He'll have a lot of hockey left in him at that age. I know the number is a big number. I know it scares a lot of people. I'm no different than all of you. I'd love to see Cole Caulfield come in. You know, as reasonable as possible and as low as possible so the Montreal Canadiens can have more money to give to other players, because if everyone comes in below value, then you have more money to give to other players, and then you have a higher chance of winning a Stanley Cup one day. At the same time, let's just say Pat Brisson says to Cole, sign a 3-year deal, sign it at $6 million a year, because or 6.5 or whatever it is, because when your contract's up in 3 years, at that point, we're going to want about 10, 11, 12. If that's the thought process, aren't you better off just giving $10 million a year in a long-term deal? I'm asking the question, by the way. I'm asking the question. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little confused and rattled myself. I know I want Cole Caulfield to be here for as long as possible. I also know the market says he's worth at least $7.5 million. So if you give him 10, it's not like you're giving him 10. It's like you're giving him 2.5, because already everyone can agree that at 7.5, that's what he's worth at the very least. Pretty good deal. If he wants a cup, he'll take less, but his agent will want 10. Christian says 3 years at $8 million. Corey says long-term, yes. Choke says not my money, so spend away to the Montreal Canadiens. Chris Hansen says he'll get 8 times 8. Cuckoo says 3-year contract for Cole Caulfield. Another fun show. The Canadiens lose by a score of 6-2. They give up 5 goals in the second period, 4 of which were on the power play. Stefano says, Tony, what time will you be at the Cash on Saturday? Well, should be there at 5:30. Should be there at 5:30. And I've been told it's going to be packed. They asked me where I want to sit, and I said, I'm just going to be happy to be there. You can put me wherever you want. And so I don't know where I'll be sitting, but I've been told it's going to be packed. You wouldn't expect anything less, because A, it's the Canadiens and the Leafs, and B, because it's Laraque. Proud sponsor of the Sick Podcast. And so is Energy Transportation Group. And so is 8.6 Beer. Marinaro, thank you to everyone watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Hit the like button. Message Sick. And if you're going to listen via audio on Google, Apple, or Spotify, make sure you give us a 5-star review. It's our way of feeling the love. I love you, Montreal. I love you, Habs fans. I love you, Sick Army. What a community we have. Bigger, better, and stronger each and every day. This podcast is going to the top. It's pretty sick. And if people see the videos or they ask you, hey, who is that guy? I'll answer the question tomorrow night, same time, same place, 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different, 8.6, intense by nature, and Laraque. If the last time you went to Laraque was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Laraque. The menu will surprise you.